Right then, in this video we're doing some noise testing on my Astra VXR. The car's got a 3.5-inch exhaust with 2 silencers and a sports cap. I had the exhaust made in this way specifically so that once it's running an external wastegate, it can be plumbed back into the downpipe and the exhaust diameter is big enough to flow for 400-500 horsepower quite easily without any restrictions. But by plumbing it back in, we can keep it quiet. You wouldn't worry about the flow so much if you were dumping the wastegate to atmosphere, but since I want the plumb back, the 3.5-inch exhaust should help with the flow. The downside is this exhaust is quite loud and boomy. To say it's got 2 silencers in it, a 3-inch exhaust with 2 silencers should be noticeably quieter. And the reason this has to be quiet is because the car is supposed to be for a track day every month or so. So I wanted to book 2. Which I've now got booked since I've already done all the noise testing. In the UK, tracks report the noise of the cars on the track to the council. The council can normally log on to an online system and see live the readings from each car that drives past to make sure that they are obeying the noise limits essentially. And if the tracks allow cars on that are too loud, then they could get shut down. At the 2 track days I'm doing, there's a 92 decibel drive-by limit, and one of them has a 105 decibel static limit, where they point a noise meter at the back of the car from half a metre away at a 45-degree angle, and you rev to something like 2/3 of the maximum RPM of the car. So for the static test, I took the car out, drove it up to temperature, went to a nice empty car park at night where I wasn't going to annoy anyone, and revved it up with my noise meter pointed at the back of the exhaust, the exact same way they would test it at a track. So it turns out the static noise test is the VXR's weakness with this big boomy exhaust. At basically part throttle, free revving, it reads 104 decibels. One of the tests was 104.9, so right below the 105 decibel limit, so it's going to be pretty close taking it on track. And I can only hope that the noise tester I'm using is just as accurate as the ones they use, or that theirs are more lenient. The unit I'm using is this Uni-T Bluetooth enabled one. These are a decent brand. It's only like 30 quid off Amazon, and it's much more accurate than using your phone, which isn't going to be calibrated, whereas these are, although this one isn't expensive enough to be certified for any like industrial use. So moving on to the drive-by test, this is normally done at 20 meters at 90 degrees to the car. The car park that we were in wasn't quite big enough to do 90 degrees, so we did 45 degrees with the exhaust pointed more at the sound meter than it should be essentially, which should actually give us a worse reading, as in louder, than it would read on track, just to be on the safe side. So doing a first gear pull, as close to the limiter as I can get in the space available, the car read 90 decibels on the drive-by test, which is well below the 92 decibel limit that it has to meet on track. I did give this 2 attempts and we couldn't get it over 90.5 decibels, so I'm pretty confident in this reading, although the traction control kept cutting in. Actually, when the traction control interferes, because on the standalone ECU it's cutting spark and the fuel's still going out the exhaust, it pops and bangs and it's actually louder while the traction control is activated than if it had been fully gripped up anyway. And I'll probably turn off the traction control for the track day, so yeah, hopefully we stay below even 90 decibels. Now for the final test, this isn't something they check on a track day, and it's not a feature I'll be using on the track day, but in this car, if I hit the aircon button, that little light lights up and anti-lag is activated. So of course we've got to see how loud the anti-lag is. And shoot some flames, even if we've got no intention of doing that on track, just for a bit of fun really. And as you can imagine, the reading with the anti-lag was 110 decibels, which is absolutely bonkers. That'll get you kicked off any track, anywhere, pretty quick. You could probably trip the drive-by noise meter from the other end of the track with that. So I'll definitely not be switching that on when I'm at Snetterton or Blyton Park later this year. So in conclusion, do I recommend a 3.5-inch exhaust for a track VXR? Probably not. It's a bit close to the limits. In future, I'll probably not book any track days with static noise limits because of how bad it is on the free rev. Thankfully Donington is my most local track other than Blyton, and their drive-by limits are something like 95 decibels and it never tripped that when I went. But yeah, you don't want to be worrying about tripping the noise sensors every time you book a track day, because you'll be losing your 200 quid booking with no refund, and there's nothing you can do about it once you get there basically. So I may look into getting a downturn tip put on this, since the 3.5 inch slash cut centre exit points directly at the noise sensor. A downturn will send most of the sound into the floor and should kill like 2 decibels or something, just making it that bit easier to beat the static noise test, but we'll see how we do at Snetterton in a couple of weeks. On the flip side though, with this 3.5 inch, if I run a plumb back wastegate setup in the future, it's going to be quieter than a screamer, and a screamer would definitely trip the noise sensors, so eventually on a big turbo the 3.5 inch system should give us the best of both worlds, but until then it's just extra diameter and extra noise for no real benefit, because the car just doesn't flow enough gases to actually need it. So that's it for this video, thanks for watching. If you liked it, like, subscribe, leave a comment and all that, and I'll see you in the next one.
Living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days. Fuck me, I'm looking in the mirror, so foggy, but I've never seen clearer. I don't really think anyone can save me, and honestly I'm not really sure I want saving. I like to be my own worst enemy. There's no risk if you don't try at anything, so I'ma just keep buying everything. See you in the next life, have to be a better me.